Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of my Mormon Stories interview with Thomas and Cece Stokes. My name is John DeLynn. It is September 27th, 2021. And as I just mentioned, we are now in part 2 of an episode that I believe is entitled Healing Through a Faith Crisis with Music. And we just finished a good 3-ish hours with Thomas and Cece Stokes. They're a wonderful couple, just talking about their upbringings in the church and Thomas's mission, and let's just say Cece's healthy but very unorthodox Mormon upbringing, and how they eventually ended up meeting at various stages in their lives, but then dating while Thomas was at BYU after he had served his mission in Chile. And how they had kind of an unorthodox Mormon courtship from the standpoint that Cece was not, had not been introduced into the Mormon shame cycle. She was confident in her unorthodox and or Jack Mormonism, as she kind of jokingly described it, but she was willing to stoop to date an uptight Mormon return missionary in Thomas. And we also talked about how and why Thomas was willing to date Cece, even though she had a past, let's just say, not the white and delightsome path that Orthodox Mormons are raised as it relates to the law of chastity and other types of things. I'm speaking a little bit jokingly, tongue-in-cheek. You'd have to go back to watch part 1 to know what I'm talking about. And you should go back to part 1 and watch what I'm talking about before we jump in now to part 2. But without any further ado, the way we left off was that Cece and Thomas were dating while Thomas was at BYU. They were starting to get serious. They were trying to still obey the honor code and the law of chastity so Thomas wouldn't get kicked out of BYU and out of the temple and out of the church and that sort of thing. But Thomas had questions about his Mormon testimony dating back from the time of his mission, but also from some of his classes at BYU and his exposure to the Gospel Topics essays. And so at the point where they meet, they're happy, they're in love, they're close friends, they're thinking about marriage, but Thomas is trying to decide what his relationship with the church is and isn't going to be. And I get the sense that he's on the ledge of a faith crisis. And that's where we leave off. So Cece and Thomas, welcome back to Mormon Stories.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. How was that introduction?
Yeah, no, that was
Very
spot
good.
on. Yeah.
And what's it like being in almost your 4th hour of a Mormon Stories interview?
It's pretty surreal. It's weird.
Dreams
Is it
come
3rd or
true.
4th? Like I've already lost track.
Well, the first one was like 2 hours, 40 minutes.
Okay, so you're almost in your 3rd hour.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where do we go from here?
My faith crisis.
Okay.
Let's just go for it.
So you're at this point, what year is it and what are your ages?
This is the summer of 2018, a.k.a. Summer of Greatness.
I would
no,
say
sorry.
not summer.
Sorry. Fall. Early fall.
Fall of 2018,
Yeah.
so 3 years, literally 3 years ago.
Yep.
You called it your Summer of Greatness.
It was amazing. Went on adventures, canyoneering, mountain biking, met the love of, or not met because I already knew her, but started dating the love of my life, broke my collarbone, had a PICC line in my body to treat the infection that was in the break, and just like wild summer, just a wild summer, I would say.
Yeah.
But as John described pretty accurately, I was on the fence about the church. I was worried about the doubts I had. My shelf was getting heavier and heavier, and I think we should just dive right into the breaking point, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
What caused it? And,
Yeah.
And yeah. Anything to say, babe?
No, I don't think so. At this point, I was, 20? And you were 23?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was 23. You were 20.
So we were both really young dealing with some heavy stuff, but we made it work. So.
Yeah, yeah. So I was in the BYU library one day, and I was doing my homework. And by homework, I mean like messing around on Instagram and Facebook. And I saw a post from an old friend on Facebook that had a meme of all the problems with the church, like all of them. It was a big meme. It was a jumbo plus
Lot of
size,
text.
a lot of text in
Do
this.
you still
meme.
have it?
I could probably find it if I tried, but it was like, it had a quote from a general authority and a picture of them at General Conference saying like something about all the problems with the church have answers, something like this. And then there was a long list and it said like, oh, well, what about blah, 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 and it listed all of them in small text. And I was like, took a deep breath. I had already been thinking about it. There were some that I saw that I recognized, some that I didn't recognize, and I was like, if this is the true church, then it can withhold, or it can withstand scrutiny. And
Tell our listeners what some of the items might have been.
yeah, let's go for it. So there was blacks in the priesthood. There was polygamy / polyandry, which I was like a little confused because I didn't know what polyandry meant. But polygamy, polyandry, there was Book of Abraham, there was Kinderhook plates, there was Adam God theory, there was, LGBTQ plus issues, there was like November 2015 policy, everything. Give me more, and I can guarantee you they were on there.
It was really comprehensive.
It was
They
comprehensive.
covered everything.
Yeah, even
More
like
than the
like
CSO.
Zelf, even stuff like Zelf, like
Zelf the White Lamanite.
Zelf the White Lamanite.
I want to challenge you to find this meme, and we'll add it to the show
Okay.
notes, if you can find it.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, so I saw it. I took a deep breath, and I said, "Here we go. Let's do this." And I started researching. And the first thing that really disturbed me was Adam God theory, of all things, because
Well, that's a big one, actually.
I know, but it's so
Tell our
off
listeners
the
what
wall.
that is. Tell our listeners
It's
what
so
that is.
weird. I'd never heard of it. Brigham Young taught that, I don't know if it was in his later years or whatever. Brigham Young taught that Heavenly Father came down as a man, as Adam. So Adam is literally our Heavenly Father, and that he's the one we need to worship. And I'm like, what? That's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. How could a prophet of God who literally talks with God say that? And then I learned that it was later disavowed. And I'm like, if it was true and if it was revelation, prophets can't lead us astray. So why is Brigham Young over here teaching totally outlandish false doctrine? Because that was through a believing lens. I was like, how could he teach this blasphemy? Which now I'm like, he was just, crazy doing his own thing.
Saying what he wanted to.
And, the only answer I really got from that one is some kid that I was working with. He was like, oh, yeah, Brigham Young was like senile in his later years, and that's why he said that, which I don't know if that's true. I'm not a historian. But that really disturbed me. And then I was like, well, if this is disturbing, what else is going to be this bad? And so I started looking at polygamy, learned more of the details about that, which I knew most of the details there, but I learned about the coercion and the pressure that Joseph Smith put on those poor, young women, girls even, to marry them. I learned about the dirty side of it. I learned about the Fanny Alger, Oliver Cowdery calling it a dirty, filthy, nasty affair. Emma catching them in the barn together. I learned about.
Yeah, and I'll just have to pause there.
Yeah.
Because the Fanny Alger, she's listed by the church as Joseph's first plural wife.
Yeah.
But what is deeply problematic about that, it's like, oh, what's wrong with wife number 2, after Emma? Well, one of the main problems was that Emma didn't know. And the second main part of the problem was not only had the polygamy revelation not been received yet, which became D&C 132,
Yeah.
the sealing power had not been received
Yeah.
yet. The sealing power didn't come until Kirtland later, and he's having sex with Fanny in the barn before either of those things came.
Who I think was
And-
16 or 17? Or was she older?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know her age.
Yeah, that's okay.
But also, if like the Oliver Cowdery is like second elder at the time, in other words, he's like second prophet or co-prophet, if he's calling it an affair, and then he gets excommunicated for calling it an affair, because he clearly, if it was a revelation or from God, no one told him. And why didn't anyone tell him? Because the sealing power and the revelation hadn't been given yet. That's the most logical answer. Then why is Joseph Smith excommunicating his co-prophet just for calling what was clearly an affair an affair? Like that's all real problem. Not to
Yeah.
mention the fact that Emma doesn't end up getting sealed to Joseph
Like the 20th
until
wife.
like 20th or 21st wife. In other words, he lies about 20 wives before he ends up actually ever getting sealed to Emma.
Because she finds out, not because he comes to her, but because
Right.
she finds out about it. And
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a rabbit
no, that's
hole.
okay.
That reminds me, though, if I can interrupt too.
Anytime. We want you.
Mentioning-
We want you
Yes.
interrupted.
I meant to mention this earlier, but all of what you just said about Joseph, deceiving Emma, putting Emma on the back burner, like we all know her story is extremely sad and that he really put her through the ringer. And that's actually something that was very defining in my youth, was that one day my mom and dad were talking about the church, which they didn't do very often because, again, they gave us freedom if we wanted to go. If we didn't want to go, they didn't want to sway us in either direction. But I do remember they were talking about the church, and I know for a fact that my mom specifically feels very strongly about Joseph Smith. And I remember she said, I must have been...
In a good way or a bad way?
Bad way.
Oh.
Very bad way.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so this might have even been before I was baptized, which I was baptized late at 12 years old. But whenever she said this, I was pretty young, and it has still stuck with me to this day. She said that Joseph Smith broke Emma's heart. And I didn't know much about Joseph Smith. Even after that, I didn't find out that much about him. I just knew that he was, the prophet. And I knew the story of the first vision and all of that. But now that we've dug into church history a little bit more together, even as a couple, Thomas and I, we've listened to podcasts and stuff about all of his wives and his polygamy, silly business. And it's just so true. Like he broke Emma's heart. And that's something I think that was really defining for me too in my youth, was that he, put her through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to mention that earlier, but
Cece's always been big on love and being a good
hopeless
couple.
romantic
And
over
she's
here.
a hopeless romantic, and so
not even that. It's just being a good husband.
being a good
like-
husband. Yeah, so hearing that from an early age, Joseph broke Emma's heart. It's
that was
true.
that's
did.
very defining for me.
And yeah, impacted you.
Continue.
Yeah. So polygamy. Where were we?
Just listing all the
things. Yeah. So polygamy was bad. Blacks in the priesthood were bad too, because on my mission I realized, this is going back a ways, but I realized that it wasn't just the priesthood. It was temple blessings. It was being sealed to your family. It was everything.
Tell the listeners for their non-Mormon listeners.
Right.
So tell them what the church's deal was there.
Yeah. Up until 1978.
So from 40,
Yeah.
let's just say 44.
Yeah, since Joseph Smith died.
To 1978.
Yeah, the church excluded black people or anyone with African descent, even if you had like a 16th part African
Drop of
American
blood
or
of
anything,
of Cain's blood. They call
any
that.
drop of Cain's blood, and you were excluded from holding the priesthood and from enjoying the blessings of the temple, which included, baptisms for the dead, sealings, endowment, being a general authority, anything.
Temple
like
marriage.
Temple, yeah, all of it.
Which is like what you're
The whole
that's the main
purpose
goal
of our life here on this
Yeah.
planet, so that was really hard. I dove more into it than I ever had before. I learned about like them lifting it because BYU or because the tax exemption status was being threatened, and people were boycotting BYU sports because they were extremely late to the game on the civil rights movement. They're late to every single civil rights movement there is. They're currently late to LGBT equality, and they will be for a long time, and they're late to everything. So yeah, that was big.
Yeah, what are the ones were really weighing heavily on you?
I should have mentioned this first, but the Book of Abraham was.
What about it? Tell our listeners what that is.
Yes, the Book of Abraham. Joseph Smith bought some mummies and papyri, I think that's the plural, how you say it, off of this traveling showman sale that he would
Merchant.
yeah, merchant type guy. And he saw the scrolls and said, I'm going to translate these, and translated them and said that they were written by the hand of Abraham, that they were a record of his life and his revelations. It had all sorts of pretty wild doctrine in the Book of Abraham, some wild stuff. And he claimed to know that that's what those scrolls said, and there were facsimiles or that had like pictures on it and hieroglyphics and depictions of different things that I won't say what they are yet. But Joseph Smith said this is Abraham being sacrificed on an altar. This facsimile number 2, I think, is the talking about the alignment of the planets and where God lives, and God giving the holy signs of the priesthood and this, that. And just a huge elaborate translation of these documents, only to later find out I won't go through all the historical details, but the Rosetta Stone was discovered and people began to translate Egyptian hieroglyphics. And when the time came, they thought that the scrolls were lost, but they found them, long story short. In the 60s, I believe, they were translated again, this time by Egyptian scholars, and they were found to be nothing more than standard funerary texts that, did not mention Abraham at all. Nothing.
And it's slightly worse than that, because by 1912, the New York Times does a front page article where Egyptologists, they didn't have the full papyri, but they had the facsimiles because the facsimiles had been reproduced in newspapers or in the scriptures or whatever. And the Egyptologists in 1912 translated the facsimiles.
Yes.
They could show immediately that the word Abraham didn't even appear anywhere on them. And that was in the New York Times. So the Brethren have known for at least 100 years, 110 years, that the Book of Abraham was not a translation, but there was no accountability, no reconciliation, no admission,
Yeah, totally hidden. They kept it under wraps from their members by telling them that anything that didn't go with the doctrine was anti-Mormon and could not be trusted. And when I finally got a hold of that and really looked into the Book of Abraham, outside of the Gospel Topics essays, it became abundantly clear that the Book of Abraham was a fabrication. And that right there was huge. That led me to question the Book of Mormon, and that's when I learned more about the anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. I learned more about the seer stone, like we said in part 1, that was problematic for me. Just everything you can imagine. And then I want to say I found out about Mormon stories through my cousin who had left the church, because I came to her and I was like, help, what is happening? And so she directed me to Mormon stories, and of course that led me to learn even more. The Grant Palmer episode was huge. The Richard Bushman episode was huge. Michael Cohn, is it Cohn? Michael Coe.
What was it about those episodes that were meaningful to you?
Here were
which ones?
Historians, scholars, smart people, non-biased, that did their research the way that research is supposed to be done, and it was found that the Book of Mormon, Joseph Smith,
just ripped it apart.
The entire church was demonstrably untrue. It was false, and that was a huge blow to my heart. I felt it deep inside, and it hurt really bad. From then, I started experiencing major anxiety. Did not know what it was. I just thought it was either the spirit leaving or me being sad about it. I had no idea. It was freaking me out because I'd never felt anxiety before. My whole world came crashing down, and part of this was, I wanted so bad to bring Cece into the gospel and have her know the true joy of it. And I said, how can I do that now when I know it's not true? And
that may have also been kind of your deal with your parents. It's like, hey, I'm bringing her into the church.
Yeah.
And they're probably looking forward to that.
Exactly.
And kind of expecting that.
Yeah, they were excited about that.
So,
because it was like the
I
one
don't
hope.
even know this. Where on the timeline did you find that meme on the timeline of us dating? Like, how long have we been dating?
We had been dating for like 2 months.
Okay.
Right
off the bat.
Yeah. We had been dating for about 2 months, I think. And I was just like totally torn apart by it. There was a moment, when things started to get slightly better, I decided to tell Cece about it. I was like, Cece, And I wanted to be such a good example for her. I wanted to bring her back. I wanted to, show her the joy of the gospel. But I was like, I can't lie to her. I can't I can't put on a show. And if this is the woman I love, I need to be honest. So we were driving to the pet store to get a betta fish for our nephew's birthday. And I looked at her and I was like, Cece, I don't know if the church is true anymore. And she was shocked. I'll go to you for how you felt.
Yeah, I can't even say I remember exactly how I felt. But yeah, it was, I guess just the best word is I was a little bit shocked, and it was jarring because up until this point, he had tried to show how steadfast he could be, and he, was trying to help me come to the light rather than him come to the dark. And so for him to just say it like that, point blank, because he hadn't told me, again, he's educated me on pretty much all of the church history that I know because he cares to do a lot more research about it than I do. But at that point, I didn't know what he'd been looking into that made him so unsure all of a sudden. And so I didn't want him to, jump into anything that he wasn't completely sure about. And that's when I told him that he needed to be sure before leaving the church, because I knew that was going to be a really big deal. I don't know anybody outside of my parents who have really, really left the church. But when they did it, I wasn't paying attention.
So by this point, your parents were totally out?
Yeah, yep. They'd been out for a while. And so, but again, yeah, I wasn't paying attention to them when they left. And I think they did it kind of quietly for our sakes. So then here's my boyfriend who I really like, and I'm going to have to go through all of this with him. And so I was like, you need to be sure.
Yeah. She was like, let's keep going to church every week. You need to read the scriptures. You need to study outside. You need to pray. You need to do all the things. I remember we were laying on the couch when she was telling me all this, and I was very grateful for that, because if she would have said, let's get out now, I would not have been ready. I would have freaked out. If she was like, let's just do whatever we want now, I would have freaked.
I was to that point. You were not. So
no, I was
like,
definitely not to
slow.
that point. It would have horrified me to move that fast, because no matter what it is in life, I kind of move slow on any sort of transition, whether it be with a relationship, new beginnings, which is interesting because being raised in a military family, I'm pretty good at adapting, but with big things like that, I guess it was going to take me a while. So yeah, that happened. My shelf collapsed. One quick story, my best friend, the one that commented on part 1, we went to dinner, and it was really weighing heavily on my mind. We were just at Denny's, and I was like, dude, what do you think about church? Like, how are you feeling about it? And he goes, there are some things that I'm not so sure about. And I slammed my hands on the table, and I was like, right? And we spent the hours just talking about it after we went to the BYU football stadium parking lot, and we're just talking about what we were going to do, what we believed, and how this was all going to work for hours. And I was just bawling my eyes out. That was a huge moment. It was a core memory, one of the most impactful conversations I have ever had. And it was nice to know that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't the crazy one, and then, of course, as time went on, more and more people I knew and were leaving, and it made a lot more sense.
It was interesting. About the same time that we were kind of heading out the door, I feel like Thomas clicked this radar on and he started to realize, or he started to notice our friends around us. He was like, I kind of feel like they're on the same page as us. And sure enough, anytime he would reach out, we would talk to them about it, and they'd be like, yeah, we're kind of on our way out too. And so we got really
Mormon radar.
Yeah, we got really lucky that he was paying attention to that. And so we had a couple of really good friends that we were able to go through that transition with, because they were in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
So
if you're watching, we love you.
yeah, we didn't feel alone. We were like, okay, we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
So
that's huge.
That was good.
Yeah, it was amazing. Now would be a good time to play the next song, because it's all about, the initial realization and horror of a faith crisis.
What's it called?
Assimilation.
Assimilation?
Yeah.
And tell us about some of the lyrics that we should be listening for.
Yeah.
So that we understand kind of a little bit of the interpretation.
So this song, there's a few interesting notes about this song. The first line of the song is "I'm scared of what we created," and it originated when I was I wrote most of the song before this, but this part, we were trying to sleep train our son, and he was being an absolute demon, and he was screaming his head off, and we were trying to comfort him. We couldn't, so we just laid him down. We were both at our wits' end. We went to the kitchen. It was completely dark, and then I didn't know what else to do. I was just ridden with anxiety, and I just start chanting. I go, "I'm so scared of what we created." That's all I could do, and we both start chanting that, and we just started laughing, because what else can you do in a situation like that? So that was the basis for the song. There's another line that I want you to pay attention to that says, "It's a kaleidoscope, it all comes spinning in, is what we learn, just a multicolored shit." And I was horrified to say the SH word. I was like, my family's going to hear this. Maybe I should just say piss or something like that. And then Cece was like, "No, you have to say shit." And I was like,
he came
"You're
to me
right."
in the living room and he was like, "Which sounds better?" And I was like, "You know which one sounds better."
So, yeah.
So language warning.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I
mild
just say-
language
mild
warning.
language
Yeah,
warning.
I say shit
PG.
only once.
PG. No F-bombs.
No.
And then one other thing, if you listen to the song on my EP on Bandcamp, it's a full version, not acoustic. It's awesome. You'll actually hear at the beginning a really weird voice speaking, and that's actually Spencer W. Kimball's voice from 1980, garbled, pitched up, and reversed. So if you want to listen to that, just a little fun fact.
And your
for you.
Bandcamp account again is
Just look up Big Crick on
Big Crick.
Bandcamp.com and you'll find it. You can get an app. It's just like Spotify, but it's free, and you just like pay the artist directly rather than doing like a subscription. Anyway, I'll get more into the like business side of my.
So the song's Assimilation.
Yep. Oh, and it's about Joseph Smith. Part of it is about Joseph Smith coming back from the dead to kill us all.
Okay.
I'm scared of when we created. Is it a monster? Is it a memory? Is it a ghost from a different reality? And I think it communicated. Was it a seance? Was it a miracle? I couldn't hear through the thick of the eulogy tears. And you're alive and well. I can't say the same for some, but before they left, they said death's not as bad as it looks. And so I'll try my best to preserve my present mood. And when it comes, I look forward to laying down with you. And I'm scared of when I've discovered. Is it a liar? Is it a holy man? He's coming back from a different reality here. He's coming back with a mission of anger and fear. He's coming back with a pair of eternity mirrors. It's a kaleidoscope. It all comes spinning in, is what we learned. Just a multicolored shit. Do I speak too soon? Or should I gather more from this? I'm not trying to fall. I'd just rather get off this cliff. I'm scared of when we created here. I'm scared of when we created here. And I'm scared of what we created here. And I'm scared of what we created. He's coming back to assimilate, seraph, and kill. He's coming back to assimilate, seraph, and kill. He's coming back to assimilate, seraph, and kill. There you go.
That's one of my favorites.
You like that?
Yes, that one's.
That
Lovely.
That was my favorite one on the EP. Go check it out. I really like that one. That one's fun to make.
What's the seraphim? What is that?
He's coming back to assimilate a seraph and kill.
Tell us what that means.
Joseph Smith is coming back from the dead to take the form of an angel of God and kill us all. It was a dream I had, and it scared the shit out of me.
It was your spooky Mormon hell dream.
It was my spooky Mormon dream. Yes.
Have you seen Book of Mormon musical?
I've listened to all the music.
Okay.
Yeah, spooky Mormon
Spooky
hell.
Mormon hell dream.
Yeah.
Well, the audience, Soap and Clay writes lovely.
Oh, thank you.
Zach says thanks.
Thanks, Denny's. You know. Oh man.
All right. Well, that's beautiful. Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks
All
for
right.
listening.
So, so the faith crisis, you hit full faith crisis mode,
Full faith crisis mode.
but Cece says, be careful, go slowly,
Yes.
right?
And
Yeah.
boy, did I go slowly. It was the slowest ripped off Band-Aid of all time.
Really?
Oh, took me so
Yeah.
I
long.
don't know. Some people go more than 2 years. So
That's true. Mine
for
was
you, it
about,
felt like that.
mine was
felt
about
like a
2
long
years.
time,
Year and a
yeah.
half, 2 years.
Oh, it's still long.
It was long.
Yeah.
Could have been.
I told him to go slow, and then by, I don't want to say by the end of it, but maybe by the time you started going to therapy, because that was really good for you, he was having an existential crisis like every other week, mainly to do with, afterlife, like what's going to become of me as this person that's no longer following the straight and narrow path. And again, I just had to constantly remind him, like, you're a good person. I truly do believe things will work out for people who lead a good life, regardless of whether or not they're part of religion or not. And so, yeah, like Thomas said, the Band-Aid came off really slow. And by the time he did start going to therapy, I was to the point where I was like, we can, like, I don't feel like I was rushing you, but
To go to therapy?
no, just to like come to the conclusion that everything was going to be okay in the end,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I I think it was just my mindset that I'd always had, that
If you're a
the
good
whole
person, you're
the whole
fine.
idea of like the tiers of heaven and like being judged and kind of getting sorted into your different pools of however moral you were in life, like that was really bizarre to me, and he did struggle with that a lot towards the middle of his faith crisis, I think.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I kind of had to keep things moving because he would get really stuck in that like horrible mindset of fear.
Yeah, I was so scared every day. Because once that faith crisis happened, I knew the church wasn't true. And even knowing, I was still so indoctrinated with guilt, fear, and shame that I wanted to keep going to church, and I wanted to do everything I should be doing. I wanted to please my parents, especially. That was a big one, because they had gone through a lot. Our whole family had gone through a lot, and I feel like I owed it to them, and I owed it to my entire family to stay in the church. And so when that faith crisis hit in fall of 2018, my heart was out. I was like, this is not true, but it was literally all just deconditioning, I guess you could call it, from then on. So I learned to let go of a lot of things, especially because I knew the consequences, the eternal consequences weren't going to be as severe as I thought. Law of chastity, I let that one go. And I felt, surprisingly, I was like, I don't feel bad.
Feel a little lighter. If
Yeah,
anything.
That's a fun one to let go.
yeah. It was not easy, but like once I did let go,
It was.
it was fine.
It was so hard.
I know, right?
At first, it was just terrible. It was just
yeah.
so difficult. But then I get used to it.
Yeah, I just deal with it now.
No, but that's a big deal. So, okay, wait, you're still at BYU.
Well, I'm at BYU.
So you're still at BYU. You're still under the honor code. And you guys decide to become sexually active, which is what, you waited some time, Cece, for that.
Time out.
But also you have to realize you have to hide it now
Yeah.
because you could get kicked out of BYU and have your whole your education jeopardized.
Yep.
And you have to hide it from your bishop and life. You have to go to do a temple recommend interview for any reason. So let's just spend a little bit of time on that for our non-Mormons who have no idea.
Yeah.
What does it mean for a return missionary BYU student to decide to become sexually active with someone he's not married to?
Definitely kicked out of BYU if I got caught. Definitely disfellowshipped. Possibly excommunicated. That's
From
what
the
I was.
church.
That was what I was looking at, and I'm like,
Which is like Mormon death penalty,
yes.
basically. Yeah.
I was the only reason I was scared is not because of eternal consequences. I was scared because my parents. I didn't want to let them down. I didn't want to let them down because they had, worked so hard to teach me these things, and here I was not following it. And so I knew the church wasn't true, and yet still I held on to that social, and the social aspect of and the structure that I was given. I held on to that. I clung to it. And so,
real quick, what if somebody says you became sexually active as a way? Well, you lost your faith as a way to justify wanting to become sexually active.
Yeah, that was my biggest fear because
that was a big one.
I was like so hung up on that because I'm like, I didn't want my family to think that Cece, okay, this is big for me. I didn't want my family to think that the love of my life was dragging me to hell. And
that's huge.
I didn't admit that to Cece. I didn't admit that to my parents, but I finally opened up about a year and a half later in therapy, and I just broke down because I was like, it was totally separate for me because I spent all this time trying to get Cece to come to the church she knows how much of a hard ass I was. Like I was not going to budge. I was not going to budge because I knew how I wanted to live and what I believed. And when that came crashing down, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Does any of it even matter? And does the law of chastity matter? Do the commandments matter? Drinking, smoking, whatever, like going to church, does any of it matter? And so to anyone that says like you just wanted to sin, you can say that. It's not true. And, I don't think looking into someone's life like that is a very accurate way of, judging them. You just have to know what it's like to go through a faith crisis and to have your beliefs stripped away from you. And that realization for me, after that, it was like, well, it doesn't matter. Maybe sexuality is a healthy thing that should be celebrated with the one you love. And yeah.
Cece, would you have ever would you remember ever having like a explicit conversation? Like I know that passions are flowing and that it's like biological to just want to have some business time, but would you have ever like had a point where once he lost his belief to make a case, like a logical argument for why it's actually a good and healthy thing? Or would that not have even been something you tried to talk about?
Not ours, just in case.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you wanted to talk about that. How much do you want to go into that?
I mean, you don't have to go like super details, but I'll start talking.
Yeah,
and
you go.
You
Sorry, he's going to kind of answer your question for me, and I'll pick it up.
Yeah, I want you to answer this but like basically, by the time I felt bad. Even though I knew the church wasn't true, I still was holding out for a while. It wasn't like night and day. And then by the time my sister's wedding came around, my little sister, which was at the very end of December, we had a conversation at the wedding, and she was like, "What do you think about sexual activity, about sex?" And I was a little hesitant, but it was that trip that I decided that it was okay. Yeah, and you can pick that up. Sorry, I didn't mean to like cut her off.
No,
or anything.
no, I wanted you to explain what you wanted to in case I said something you didn't want me to.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, like he said, I mean, I'd kind of started to wear him down a couple of months before that, and he was definitely.
You make it sound like you're just like beating me.
You're just a rock, and I was just like beating on you, dude. But so all through that fall, he was already breaking the honor code, and he was already having to be very careful about nobody finding out that we were not being as chaste as you're expected to. But then, yeah, like he said,
somewhere between kissing and sex. Basically.
Yeah. And so, I mean, technically, I don't understand how the Mormons view virginity, like when it's broken and when it's not.
It's weird, man.
Especially on Reddit right now. It's a thing.
Yeah, like I don't know where they draw that line, but I think we had crossed that line without going all the way. But by the end of December, I was like, you know what? Like we've talked so many times about how we feel about each other, what we expect from our futures together, because we do see a future together. And so I was like, why is it so demanded that we wait? You know, like what's the difference between doing it now when we know we love each other and when we're married, if we ever get married, you know, like.
Mother, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. I love you.
Yeah, we're just bearing all our hair. But yeah, I did get pretty explicit, and I drilled my case home.
She had a notebook, a PowerPoint presentation. This is why it's okay.
When we were at his sister's wedding, and I think he just wanted to get through the temple mostly, and then after that, he was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna let go of it because.
Which, being in the temple, this is not to throw shade on my sister's ceiling. You know, it was beautiful for them, but I did not feel. I didn't feel this.
Didn't feel like you wanted it for yourself.
No. And
you didn't feel like.
No, I didn't feel like I needed the temple in my life, and that was like I went in. And I'm like, why is this everything we're taught to strive for? And
Were you disappointed? Was it like a letdown?
I had seen ceilings before, and every time it's just an old guy.
Describe what it was like. No, okay. Just to reiterate, I'm gonna give you cover. This isn't about how much you love your sister. It's not about how much you love her marriage or her partner.
Yeah.
It's not about the day overall. We're talking about the LDS Church's temple wedding ceremony, separate from his incredible love for his sister and her husband and all the family.
I appreciate that.
It's the
thank you for saying that. This is hard to talk about. Being in there, anything related to the temple always disturbed me. Just being there, I just felt like this is so contrived. This is so obviously not of God. And I know that's going to break some people's heart if they're listening, and I'm so sorry, but it just didn't, and I know it felt like that for them, but for me it did not. And
was it the words being said? Was it the sealer?
The sealer, you know, he's just there, you know, he's not celebrating the love of two human beings. He's celebrating the fact that these two people are still in the church and that they're going to go through with, you know, their covenant path. And I compare that to our wedding. We eloped. We were on the beach side, wrote our own vows to each other, and I bawled my eyes out. And I get people bawl their eyes out at ceilings too, but it makes so much more sense to me to have a wedding where I'm making my own covenants to her and she's making her own covenants to me. We're not doing handshakes. We're not in weird robes. We're not, we're not going through some contrived ceremony that an old guy is officiating who's never met us before. And so being in that ceremony was a big moment for me, because I was like, this is not what I want. And it really hurts because I gave my sister a hug in the ceiling room, and she says, I hope to see you here one day. And I said, okay, I will, because I had that wall up, and I said, okay, I will, don't worry. And the wall, for listeners now, I mentioned having a wall between my family members. Anytime that they said something I didn't agree with, I would just say, okay, I would just agree and bottle it up. And that's what I did there too, which was super hard because even now I have a hard time expressing my opinion to my family about the church, because I know it's so sacred for them. The last thing I want to do is tear down their beliefs and make them feel bad. But at what point is it time for me to just be a little more authentic? So, yeah, that was hard.
You got it out.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, so right after that, I think that was very eye-opening for him as far as our physical relationship. And from there, I feel like it almost got better. Would you agree?
What? Our relationship?
Yeah, just in general.
Everything got better after that, yeah.
You were just better at releasing, I think, after that. Because I feel like that was really the biggest milestone, was because that had been weighing on him. Let's see, his sister got engaged in October, I want to say.
No, it was earlier than that. It was August.
August? Okay. And so that entire time, it's like, okay, you know that they're going to have a temple ceremony. I obviously wasn't allowed in.
Oh, yeah.
That
That's
wasn't
another
an
thing.
issue. I sat.
Why not?
I just wasn't worthy. And so I
Wait, how is it that you weren't, but he was? Oh, I guess you don't have to answer that if there's.
Oh, no, I was not worthy. Let's be clear.
Oh, neither of you were.
So
I shouldn't have gone in.
he had to BS his interview.
I
if we're
BS my
being
temple
But you
completely
both could have lied
transparent.
then.
No, because it was obvious that she couldn't be in, because she had slept with people. She had lived with her boyfriend.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
knew
would've-
she
She had
wasn't
never
in.
gone through the steps of
I would have had to go a
repentance.
lot further back than him. And so I was
Oh,
like,
okay. So people would have known she had had sex that she hadn't have repented for.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you guys were both even though that was long in the past, and you guys were both messing around equally
Everyone
his
knew.
transgressions were a lot more recent and
invisible.
less,
Invisible,
yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Isn't that weird?
So
yes,
messed up.
and so I was like, well, your family. I was like, your family knows that I was living with somebody. So I was like, I don't feel like I need to go through the process to be able to go through the temple. Like, I'm okay with it. I'm not offended. I'll just stay outside. And so I literally, like, as Thomas's date, I had to sit in the car for like an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Babysitting
They left-
all the kids.
Yeah, they left all their kids with me, obviously, because the kids can't go in.
There were like
and
5 kids.
yeah, and at the time it was just funny, and I was fine to watch all the kids because they were being super cute and they were doing funny things. But looking back, I'm like, you had to ditch me and leave me in the car because
I'm
I couldn't
sorry.
go through. No, I'm fine with it. No hard feelings whatsoever. But it's just so funny that you know, like, that's what I did for his sister's wedding, was I sat in the car, and he went through the temple, but he went through with a super heavy heart because it just felt so wrong, and because he'd had to lie to get there because he was still pleasing his family. And so
And without you.
yeah.
I was without my.
And so that had weighed on him for like 6 months because he's like,
Yeah.
I know we're going to have to do it this way. And I was like,
I didn't believe the
That's the way
church
it
was
is.
true. I didn't have my wife with me. The temple ceremony for me is weird, both the sealing and the endowment. And I had lied to get my recommend renewed. And
and
literally,
your family was like, okay, you're next.
and my family was like, "Okay, you're next." It was a rough time.
It was a lot, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. After that, after you got through, I felt like he was a lot better at
Oh,
releasing.
yeah.
And from there, we started to have conversations with family members, which we'll get into.
No, it was a whole year after that.
So yeah,
yeah,
but
okay.
so pause where you are. I just wanted to say one thing. I ask about sex almost every interview I've ever done, especially in the past several years, and I think most people get it. but some don't, and they write in, "Watch out! Why are you so obsessed about sex?" I am not obsessed about sex. I think
The
I'm
Mormon
just a
church
normal.
is obsessed about sex.
What's that?
The Mormon church
Yeah.
is obsessed about sex.
No, I think I am very average, probably in all the ways in terms of sex. But tell me if I'm wrong. Was this a major issue for you guys that weighed on you very heavily for a long period of time? I don't think I'm just making that up. I think it's that the Mormon church is obsessed about sex, but that ends up just this whole temple shame thing about how, like, what you have to do to be able to go to a wedding of a family member, right? Like, you know, when we talk about Stephen Hassan's bite model, you know, the way that the church controls behavior, and then they control your information and your thoughts, and then use emotion to shame you or make you feel fear. This whole idea of you have to be worthy to go to the temple, but your family member's getting married, so you either have to shape up and pay your tithing and become moral, or everyone's going to know that you're unworthy and wonder why you aren't worthy to be there, you know, or you have to lie to get in. And, you know, just the fact that people are being excluded from what should be this wonderful, marvelous ceremony. Of course, the church has the right to exclude who they want from the temple, but it is super, and I'll just say it, it's super cultish that a sister or a parent or a child is or a loved one, a fiance, girlfriend is excluded from a wedding, you know, and the accompanying, it makes the whisper campaigns like, why isn't Cece there? Well, Cece, well, you know that Cece had a pass.
I had to just wear it
and
like that was my badge for the day.
It was
I
your
was like,
scarlet
yep,
letter,
I was
dude.
not. And my parents weren't at my sister's either.
Oh,
we were
that's-
all outside. I remember us all being on the grounds.
Your parents weren't at your sister's
They
their
were
own daughter's
not,
wedding.
no. And again, I was like a teenager and I wasn't paying attention to all the little details. But looking back, I'm like, I think that probably made my mom especially so much more sad than she felt like she was allowed to let on, because my sister was just so happy to be going through the temple with her husband. But it's like, you know, you have to, like, you literally have to leave people behind on your wedding day because they're living life differently than you. And it's really, it's interesting.
But they're just
and
not
it's
worthy
like,
to enter the house of the Lord, babe. Come on.
yeah, it's
So the shame and the control, and you have to pay 10% to even go to the temple. So it's also a
Pay
way
to
for
play,
the church
man.
to get money.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's one of the just most egregious, outstanding, one of several really egregious, outstanding things that just has to change. Mormon church, let any family member go to a temple wedding. Don't require money to go to a temple wedding, and don't exclude people in ways that are shaming and make everyone speculate about why they're not there. It's just
Extreme
a really
standards.
cult-like. If you don't want people to call you a cult, abolish this practice. That will get you a long way.
Mormon
towards
secret
being less
agents
cult-like.
listening to this.
What?
I said Mormon secret agents
Oh,
listening
yeah.
to
They
this.
listen.
You heard the man.
They listen.
Take
We know
note.
you do.
They listen. Absolutely. Anyway, keep
Yeah.
going. So I paused you. Keep going. This was a big deal for you guys,
Yeah,
right?
big deal.
I'm not injecting my own issues into
I feel
your
like
life. Right?
that was kind of the hump that we got up onto, and then from there we still had a lot of things that we needed to work out, but I feel like we were able to take courage a little bit more
Yeah,
and
for
to be
sure.
like, look, we've already done the worst thing we can do. We had sex like the day after Thomas lied about going through the temple. Like, just laying it out. And so, yeah, from there it was like, okay, I don't know if we just felt a little more untouchable or if it was just, you know,
Past the point of
that
no
veil
return.
was,
Yeah.
I think we just took that veil down.
took
I
the
mean, mine was
plunge.
already halfway down.
She
but
drugged
then,
me down to hell.
So, yeah.
The temptress.
So, I know.
And really quickly,
I
this
joke
is-
about that. Sorry.
about her being a temptress.
I joke about
You
it,
were very serious before about
But it
that
was
not
literally
being.
like that was my defense mechanism. We would have to joke about
yeah.
it, or else I would just like, because that's the last thing
Like,
I
what
wanted
if you
people
are
to
a
think.
temptress?
One, I was like, well, that was my thought before, but when I actually stopped believing, I didn't want other people to think that, you know, you were the cause of my faith crisis, because it happened. My crisis happened before we were even dating, so
Yeah.
it
It
just
was just how it happened that
Yeah.
I trotted in at that
Yeah.
time. But
So really quickly, one of my favorite stories on Mormon Stories is when I interviewed Natasha Helfer
yeah.
about her high school sexual experience. and how beautiful it was, but how guilt-ridden the church made it.
It was tainted. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what that was like for you guys. So just because you lose your faith doesn't mean the conditioning all melts away.
No, not at all.
And so I'm wondering, were you guys able to just really enjoy it, or was there like a period where it was awkward or guilt-ridden, or you would have deep remorse, or was the conditioning and wiring not that deep at that point?
For me, I'll answer and then you can go if you have any. Yeah.
No, go for it.
For me, the guilt honestly was before I was doing anything really quote unquote bad. That's where most of my guilt was, because I was still like in, and like if I would like go a little too far, I would feel super bad. But once I actually stopped believing, and we actually did, have sex and do all that, I did not feel super bad about it, which is I'm really happy about. I felt bad for the lying to, or like not lying, but like hiding from my family. That's what I felt bad about.
Yeah, that continued.
Because hiding never really is good.
Feels gross.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, gross is a good word for it. Like, we both felt like we weren't doing anything wrong at this point, because once he reached that point, he's like, okay, you're right. This is a natural thing. This is a great bonding thing between humans. But to have to hide it feels gross. And so I don't know that I don't want to speak for you. Maybe you felt more guilt than you let on, but it was never so bad that we had any awkward periods, or that we decided to like not do it again.
Yeah.
Like from there, it was,
Yeah.
we normalized it in our relationship, which was good.
And did it enhance your relationship?
Oh yeah, 100%. It was great.
After, I don't want to be like, you don't need all the details, but afterwards he was like, okay, that's what I was missing. And I was like, yes, it's a good thing. It really is. Like, people want to make it awkward and uncomfortable and ew, but I'm like, it's a good thing and it's a natural thing. So
keep in mind, when I told her about my faith crisis, she was like, before you leave, or before you do anything, you need to be sure. And we made sure of that. I was sure that the church wasn't true. It was just getting out of the structure that took so long. So honestly, yeah, we enjoyed it. It was good.
How many months or years from the time you started dating till that moment? I'm just curious. How long did you go?
6 months.
6 months.
about 6 months, yeah.
Okay.
So we make it sound like it was really drawn out, which I think, again, to us, it felt like it was, because we were just trying to work through so much stuff. But in the long, like looking at it now, it was pretty short. We moved pretty fast.
By non-Mormon standards, 6 months is probably quite a long time. If it's
I
the
guess
person
that's
you end
true.
up marrying, right?
Yeah.
Really quick, I'll share a comment from one of our listeners. Kyle writes, "My wife and I chose to not attend my sister's wedding after losing our faith. Everyone was aware that we weren't there. It was a huge topic of conversation, and family members would not let it go." Thanks for sharing, Kyle. We're sorry that happened to you.
That's hard.
That's the hardest.
Go ahead.
It's just such a juicy like piece of gossip in the Mormon community. It's like, oh, so-and-so isn't taking the sacrament, so-and-so isn't in the temple. And then they just like, you shouldn't even be allowed that speculation, but you are, because it's like, okay, they must have done one of these things on this list of no-nos. And so, yeah, that's hard. Kudos to them for just choosing not to, though.
Yeah, that's
Kyle.
hard.
It's integrity. I think there's justification either way, because you could argue that it's an unjust exclusion.
Yeah.
So I'm not throwing shade on anyone that decides not to be honest. And, my brother chose to not be in his daughter's wedding for no other reason than that he felt like it might be dishonest for him.
Yeah.
To, he didn't feel good about it at the time. And that's to be a dad and just to
That
choose
takes a
not to
lot
be
too,
That's
yeah.
super
your own
hard.
daughter's wedding. And
Both
then
are really hard.
there's no sin, but then to create speculation in everyone else's mind as to why you're not there. Did he cheat? Did he have a porn problem?
I know, they just get to
People's
run wild
minds,
with their thoughts, and
they
it's
just
like, they're
go.
not even going to ask you, they're just going to assume.
Yeah. No, they're not going to ask you.
Heavens no.
Yeah.
So we get engaged in January, and then we elope in March.
January of 2019?
Yeah.
And why'd you elope and not? You want to follow Joseph Smith's example, basically.
Right. Well, she always liked the idea of an elopement, and she again with her PowerPoint. She had her PowerPoint and her books open, and she gave her presentation on why we should elope. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Let's do it.
It was another point. I mean, you make it sound like you were gung-ho now because hindsight's 2020 and we would not do it any other way. But this was another point of me having to convince him a little bit that it's okay to do things, you know, be a little unorthodox because, again, he just had the issue of family. Like, hey, my family's going to want to see us, even if it's a civil wedding. I was like, it's our day and I'm the bride and I have always loved the idea of eloping. Mm-hmm. And so I did have to kind of convince you on that too. It didn't take super long at all.
I was on board. I really was.
Yeah, because I was like, once I named the pros, not having to plan, saving money, blah, 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 the intimacy, like it really didn't take long. He was like, okay, that sounds great. And so from there, we... Did
you go to Vegas?
We planned it really quickly. No, actually we didn't. That would have been really fun. We actually had a photographer reach out to us first about doing a styled elopement shoot.
Yeah, and like as models, not as actually people.
Yeah, he was like, I just need you as like content or whatever. And we told him that we felt like it would be dishonest to just like get this entire photo shoot for free because it was around the time that we actually wanted to elope. And so we were like, if we act it out for him, for his content, we need to, you know, pay him so because it's our actual elopement and these are the only photos we're going to have. Like, this is going to be it for us. And he was amazing. Like, he let us take his dad's boat out on Lake Powell. This would have been in March that we did this, correct?
Yeah, it was March.
And so there was just no one else there because it was kind of the off season. And I just borrowed a dress from a dress shop per the photographer's request because...
He had connections.
Yeah, and he took care of the bouquet. He brought a really cool rug for the aesthetic of the photos. And then we...
found a secret beach.
Like a little bay. Yeah, it was really beautiful. And we did write our actual vows, what we wanted to say to each other to make it an official ceremony. Well, I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves. We were already married at this point.
Well, we did the judge. We had to do the on paper.
Yeah.
We got married at a judge's
because the
house.
photographer couldn't have officiated us.
Yeah.
But that was just like, what, 2 weeks before?
Yeah, it was just right before. But like the actual elopement ceremony that we did for ourselves was, on a little
So your
secret
parents
lake.
didn't know you were eloping?
They knew we were going to, but not when. And so
we did kind of jump, or we kind of dropped that on them the day that we made it official with the judge at his house.
We just sent him a picture of the certificate.
Yeah, and we were like, we did it, which I think it took them by surprise, but...
What went through their mind?
They were my family was not happy.
What goes through an Orthodox Mormon parent's mind when their kids say we're eloping?
We're pregnant. Are they pregnant? Which we weren't. We just wanted to elope. Yeah. They were...
Because it's not a temple marriage.
Not a temple marriage.
That's like the Eagle Scout equivalent for Mormon parenting. If your kids get go on a mission and then marry in the temple, you've been a good parent.
Yep.
If the kid doesn't go on the mission and or doesn't get married in the temple, you sucked as a parent.
Like my mom. I've actually talked to my mom about that, and I try to tell her so much. Mom, you're amazing. You're the best woman ever. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. But there's a lot of. She's come to me a couple different times about how she thinks she failed in certain aspects. I'm like, no, you did not.
Well,
fail.
and that's just more like unfair church conditioning. Even with his family being completely in, like, how are they still being guilted just because their children happen to choose different paths? Like, all of that is so complex and weird to me.
And it also makes what should be an amazingly happy day, your Orthodox Mormon parents are kind of viewing it as a disappointment.
Yeah. There's always that taint on just everything.
Yeah, there's a little taint on every single little
Which,
thing.
I mean, we were so happy to do it, and we don't regret it. And
bawled my eyes out.
Yeah,
it was great.
We don't feel like we should have done a civil marriage and invited guests and all of that. But there's just always that
I just have to say that
we made our parents sad. No, that's it. Is that parents are sad we did it this way.
Well, that's the other thing. It's not just parents. It's like, if you are Mormon and all your parents and siblings and grandparents and aunts and uncles are all Mormon, then when you get married not in the temple, that's everybody's like, what a disappointment.
I know.
So that I can see why you would want to just elope. Then you don't have to go through, look at everybody in the eye as they all think of, as you're wondering
they're expecting an
in
invitation.
their head that they're all disappointed and saying, well, you guys clearly had sex. You guys clearly had sex and are probably pregnant. And that's why
say what
there's
you
no
will about
temple
me.
wedding, right?
Yeah.
And
Who wants to go through
that?
that?
I know, like that's not fun.
Was that part of it maybe subconsciously?
Oh no, that was yeah, you're not overstepping your bounds. That was definitely part of it.
I'm sure
was
they were like,
I don't
"Oh,
want to deal
boy."
with this. Like, let's just go.
Yeah.
By the end, because I had talked to every single one of my family members, and like even telling some people that I was engaged, like, and that I wasn't going to do a temple marriage. I could hear the disappointment in their voice, and it was really sad. I'm like, you should be happy.
Those
you should be
wheels
jumping
start
for joy.
spinning. Like, okay, why?
Yeah, you should be jumping for joy that I found the love of my life and I'm gonna get married. But not it. Some people I told kind of gave that vibe, and it was kind of sad for me.
Which is really funny. It's ironic because we did get that impression from some family members, like, oh, why are you doing it this way? This is, abnormal for us. We were expecting something different. And then we also had issues with our family members wanting to be there and feeling like they were excluded.
Which I get that part. I really do.
I get it too, but at the same time, those same family members went through a very exclusive temple ceremony.
Right?
And so it's like, where are you coming from? If we don't want to have anybody there, just so that everybody's on the same page, like, hey, we're not excluding one person over the other. We just want it to be us two. And they get upset, like, why don't you want us there? And it's like, well, why didn't you want, if it's your own mom or your own sister, like, why weren't they there? And it's because you let this, this organization dictate who could be at your wedding and your wedding list. Like,
yeah, that's really good.
That's ironic.
Yeah. Super ironic.
Wow, that's good. I got to write that down.
Yeah, that's a solid
that's
one.
A keeper.
Nice. I mean, this, again, it's not to throw shade on any of our family members, but it is a good point. Like, we know that was the thing for you guys to do. We don't blame you for getting sealed in the temple, but you got to admit it's an exclusion, very exclusive.
Turn the tables.
Yeah, turn the tables a little bit. Try to see it from our point of view. I definitely see it from theirs, and I don't blame them for it. So,
okay, we're getting we have a comment that I just want to read. Alan Child Videos writes. The church allows for weddings to be performed outside the temple so all family members can attend. Then those that want go to the temple another time can do so. So this is sort of a believing Orthodox Mormon saying you guys are making the church look bad.
Okay. I'm happy to address that.
Okay, because I want to jump on that too,
okay,
but I'll let you go first.
Okay. First of all, I get what you're saying. They do allow that, but that's a recent development in 2019, I believe. Before 2019, you had to wait a year if you did not immediately get sealed. And even if...
To do like a civil ceremony.
To do a civil ceremony,
okay.
Yeah. But a lot of people get sealed first and then just do like a ceremony after. That's great. If that works for you, cool. But at the end of the day, like, that's not the wedding we wanted. And that's not the wedding that most people choose. Most people get sealed, have a reception, and call it good. And
there's still that exclusivity to be like, okay, everybody's at this ceremony, but then we're going to go sneak over here and do another ceremony where some people are still not allowed because, you have to do it through the temple sealing. Does that make sense? Like there's still
there's still an element of being
weird
exclusive.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the church's way of saying, okay, we are including all people, but if that was the case, then they would just do away with, only allowing certain people into the temple for the ceremonies. It would just be like, okay, you don't need to have two ceremonies. You can have one and everybody's allowed. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, my answer was going to be, number one, what about the 180, 190 years where people were excluded? This is just a change in the past couple of years. Yeah. That needs to be accounted for. Don't act like that isn't the reality for like almost 200 years of Mormon families. Mm-hmm. But then the second thing is that still in 2021, that's viewed as an inferior choice. So most
Most
Orthodox
people don't do
Mormons
that.
by far don't select that option and choose to exclude so many people because I think it's viewed as like, yeah, well, that's what the lower class, less devout Mormons do.
Like they have
have
too
the
many
two
family members
ceremonies.
that aren't allowed in.
I've been excluded. You know, obviously I'm excluded from all Mormon weddings because the church excommunicated me. But I've seen several weddings in my family where that option to this day has never been chosen. So
I didn't know that
that's
was
like
a
a
thing.
that's like a marketing thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in reality an opening up.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that we have believing listeners, Orthodox listeners listening. I just don't think the point you're making really honestly, accurately nullifies our concern about the shame-based exclusionary marriage, temple marriage policies that are still very much in effect today. That's what I think.
Maybe one day in the future, the culture will shift and the main ceremony will be one that all can attend.
Everybody.
But I don't see that happening anytime soon. Because what do they want to be there for? They want to be there for the moment you get married or the moment you get sealed, and having just a one-off like separate ceremony. Oh, this is just
Almost
for,
like a secondhand ceremony.
Yeah. Oh, this is for everyone else
Make
that didn't get
everyone
to see
feel
the
better.
real
Yeah.
ceremony. Yeah. So let's move on though. Yeah.
So really quickly, I'll just read a comment or two.
Yeah, for sure.
So HJ Heather Jane writes, the worst thing is not being able to be with my sister on her wedding day. She's my best friend and I was matron of honor, but it felt basically for picture's sake and I felt excluded.
Jeez, yeah.
That's really hard.
So also really quickly, someone's writing that the audio sounds choppy. I'm curious if other YouTube listeners are finding the audio to be choppy. If it is, we can stop and try and fix it, but hopefully that's just one listener's experience and not everyone's experience. So if
Yes.
you guys don't mind, let's see. Yeah, so I'm getting feedback that there's an audio problem.
Uh-oh.
Let me try. I'm going to pause.
In the meantime, I will be right back.
Okay. If we can troubleshoot the audio problem. 1 second, everybody. We'll be right with you. Okay, listeners, really quickly, thanks for letting us know when there's an audio problem. We want to be able to always address that. So I just shut off the mixer and juggled some of the cables around. And I just want people to just answer really quickly if that fixed it or if you're still getting choppy audio or robotic audio sound. Can you guys just chime in really quick and comment on YouTube? Really quick, I'll just wait for people to comment to see if the audio is still having problems. And I'll go ahead and just ask. So what we're doing right now is just confirming that we may have, we tried to tweak some things to get the audio to be better. Why don't you guys talk for just a second, just informally.
Yeah.
Saying it's still choppy. It's still an issue.
Uh-oh. That's not good. Still choppy?
I don't know.
What did you do when I left?
It's crackling.
Crackling. That sounds like something to do with the cables. It's crackling.
He juggled them around right here. Is that not what it would be?
Could be multiple things. Shoot, I don't know.
Still problems, still choppy.
Okay, everyone. When we speak, it's fine.
Okay, so I unplugged some things and replugged some things in. John, check the master fader on the mixer. It might be too hot. Also make sure every cable is plugged in all the way.
We're just overheating the system here.
Too hot isn't too
We're just
sensitive, too loud, the gain. How tall are you, John?
6'6".
Dang.
Just had to ask.
Had to ask. Yeah, pretty tall. That's how tall our landlord is. Or is he 6'7"?
I don't know. He's huge.
Yeah, he's like 150 pounds.
All right. So this is John. I really appreciate people giving feedback about static, and because audio quality is important. So I just played with my audio, and I'm just wondering now if that made any difference. So really quickly, if you guys could let me know whether anything I just did made a difference. So is that better? Is that worse? Are you still hearing the static? Are you still hearing crackling sounds? Crackling Rosie, get on board. With Neil Diamond. We're gonna go to the end of. What are you guys laughing about?
Sounds good.
Taking it slow.
Don't stop.
Honey, don't you know? Still hearing it a little bit. So that's not good.
Yeah.
Would that be like a shorting issue or something?
Like on the cable itself, there could be, I don't know. That's weird. What if you switched mics? Or like over there?
Switching the mic.
Yeah, Kara's mic.
Crackling Rose, your
I would
store-bought
go-
woman.
I would switch the whole cable too, if that's possible at all.
Switch the cable.
Yeah, the mic cable all the way into the direct input box there. Switch the whole thing.
Play it now. I'm not gonna let that go.
Just keep the concert going.
Yeah.
My baby.
Oh, nice. Just close up of your shirt. Can they? Are they watching this too? Is this all live?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. I mean,
I could kill the feed, but then we lose.
if my mic is working while you're figuring that out, I could play another song.
Yeah,
if you
play a
want.
song.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this song is called Easy Way Out. It's the title track to my EP that you can purchase on Bandcamp for $3 or more if you want. And I wrote this the first day I went to therapy. We'll backtrack and give some background, but this is just so we can have something happening here. This is called Easy Way Out. It is about the inner dialogue and conversation I had with myself once I realized the church wasn't true and once I kind of came to terms with it. Oh, and let me actually fix them. There we go. Okay. It always ends up tied up in my mind and squeezes all the love until it dies. A never-ending circle of design that pulls me back for questioning my life. Well, serves you right for asking why you're here. You're fine, you're here, you're fine. I hear you're fine. Shut up, you're fine. I never get a second point of view. Why bother when the one you have is true? How dare you ever leave this special place that ebbs and flows on what it wants to say? And what they say is we're okay, that I'm not broken, but I am. I think I am. Oh God, I am. I guess I'll take the easy way out. I'll tear my roots, I'll dig my grave and spit it out. Leave it alone, leave it alone. If you can't stay, but you can change, I'm changing every goddamn day. So worry what the other ones will think. Inside the well, it never looks that deep. Go and grab your spade and dig that rabbit hole. But once you start, you'll never come back home. Well, serves you right for asking why you're here. You're fine, you're here, you're fine. I hear you're fine. Shut up, you're fine. I guess I'll take the easy way out. I'll tear my roots, I'll dig my grave and spit it out. Leave it alone, leave it alone. If you can't stay, but you can change, I'm changing every goddamn day. I never thought of it as an abuse. Inside, the happiness can always trump the truth. Well, ignorance is bliss, they always say. The truths of now are lies from yesterday. And what they say is we're okay, that we're not broken, but we are. It's never been more clear that we are. I guess I'll take the easy way out. I'll tear my roots, I'll dig my grave and spit it out. Leave it alone, leave it alone. If you can't stay, but you can change, I'm changing every goddamn day. I'm changing every single day. I'm changing every single day. I'm changing every goddamn day. Could they hear that okay, or was there crackling in mine too?
Hope not.
Yeah, the feedback is Elsie says, I needed this song. Weir Family says, just keep going. Soap and Clay says, gorgeous lyrics.
Thank you.
This one's beautiful. They loved it.
Thank you.
That's been a crowd favorite on the EP. Everybody has loved that one a lot.
Yeah.
Way out.
Easy way out. Go to Bandcamp and buy my EP. That one's included. It's a lot more upbeat on the EP, but I also included an acoustic version that you can buy as well of all 3 songs. But that one is definitely the title song for a reason. Everyone says that we're just taking the easy way out, and I wanted to illustrate what the easy way out was like, and it's not easy. It's
Quite
not.
the opposite.
Yeah, quite the opposite.
I love it. Okay, well, we're having some technical glitches, and the interview is going to continue. What we'll probably end up doing is just reposting this part 2, but I think there's enough static and crackling that I really do think we should stop and figure this out before we keep going.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Because if I don't even know if the raw audio. I'm going to guess the raw audio is going to be fine, but just ask everyone's forgiveness. I'm going to stop this live stream. We're going to figure out the audio, and then if you guys just want to stick around, I'm sure within 10 or 15 minutes, hopefully, we'll figure it out, and we'll go ahead and live stream the concluding part, and then maybe we'll rebroadcast this second time in its completion so that there's an intact, clean version up.
Yeah.
So sorry for the glitch. Go take a potty break. Go get a snack.
Back for part 3.
And we'll come back in just a minute for part 3. Sorry for the trouble, everyone.
Yeah.
And that was beautiful. So thank you, Thomas.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
All right.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys back in just 1 second. Take care.